Englishman.
It's actually pretty exciting to see that Kingsman the Blue Blood is still on the horizon, since Matthew Vaughn's Kingsman franchise has delivered such a fun and stylish blend of spy action and cheeky humor over the years. Fans definitely have a soft spot for these movies, so it's good to know there's still life left in this world, even though things aren't exactly running smoothly right now. So here's where things stand. Matthew Vaughn has always had a big vision for Kingsman, wanting to stretch it into a sprawling franchise with multiple sequels and spin-offs. Right now, the next movie lined up is Kingsman the Blue Blood, which is actually being treated as the proper Kingsman 4, not a direct follow-up to the prequel The Kingsman. But because Vaughn's recent films haven't really done all that well at the box office, there's this cloud hanging over the future of the franchise. Originally, The Blue Blood was meant to hit theaters in 2024, and the plan was for it to serve as the definitive wrap-up of Harry Hart and Eggsy's roller coaster relationship. We don't have tons of details on what the plot will be beyond that, but Vaughn has been pretty vocal about wanting to load the movie with big names. He even floated the idea of Dwayne Johnson stepping in as the main villain, and there's been buzz about Mark Strong coming back too. Still, despite Vaughn's enthusiasm, the studio, 20th Century Studios, might be heading in a different direction. What's sort of encouraging, though, is that there have been hints lately suggesting the Blue Blood isn't totally dead. Even after some fairly grim comments from 20th Century Studios president Steve Asbell last October, Taron Egerton went on record with Screen Rant saying that both he and Vaughn are still hopeful they'll get to make one more Kingsman movie. When pressed on Asbell's remarks, Egerton kind of sidestepped, saying, "I believe that was said by somebody from Fox, I think. I don't know, and I don't want to speak out of school, but I don't think that necessarily means we won't do it. I think Matthew and I very much want to do one more. I want to do one more. So while, we don't have a shoot date yet, I think it could still happen." So while that doesn't exactly lock things in, it's definitely a more hopeful note than some of the more pessimistic takes. At least it makes clear that Asbell's comments were about what's currently on the studio's plate, not necessarily a firm cancellation of Kingsman's future. With both the lead actor and the director still fired up to do it, there's still a decent shot we'll see Eggsy suit up for one last wild mission. If you look back, Kingsman the Blue Blood has been floating around for quite a while. Vaughn first started talking about it way back in May 2017, shortly after The Golden Circle came out that same year. By 2019, Taron Egerton was saying that the script was already finished, and then in 2020, Vaughn officially revealed the title. It honestly looked like everything was lining up nicely. But since then, things have kind of crawled to a halt. Vaughn has had a tough streak lately, with some high-profile box office bombs that have clearly shaken 20th Century Studios' confidence. In October 2024, Steve Asbell basically admitted that they didn't have any current plans to keep pushing the Kingsman franchise forward, even while hyping up a bunch of other sequels like Alien, Predator, Avatar, and new Agatha Christie adaptations. When someone brought up Kingsman, Asbell just shrugged it off with, "There are no plans on doing them anytime soon." That stands in pretty stark contrast to Vaughn's more upbeat comments from just a few months earlier. But really, it shouldn't be too shocking. Sure, Vaughn crushed it at the box office with the first Kingsman and its sequel, but The Kingsman only pulled in about $125 million worldwide, and then Argylle in 2024 totally tanked. With results like that, you can see why the studio might be leaning towards safer bets. Still, if The Blue Blood does eventually get made, it sounds like we'll see a bunch of familiar faces again. Vaughn has been pretty clear that Colin Firth and Taron Egerton are essential. You just can't do a final chapter about Harry and Eggsy without them. He's also said he'd love to bring in Dwayne Johnson as the main bad guy, although that's nowhere near official yet. There's even been talk of Halle Berry possibly popping back in as Ginger, though that's also up in the air. When it comes to the cast, the most likely lineup for Kingsman the Blue Blood would definitely bring back some familiar faces. Colin Firth is expected to reprise his role as the ever-dapper Harry Hart, since it's hard to imagine a proper Kingsman finale without him. Of course, Taron Egerton would also return as Eggsy Unwin, the street-smart recruit who's grown into a true gentleman spy over the course of the series. There's also a good chance we'd see Channing Tatum back in action as Tequila, adding his own swagger and cowboy charm to the mix. And even though it might require some clever writing to work around his character's fate, there's still hope that Mark Strong could come back as the loyal and brilliant Merlin. Altogether, this core group would help make sure the story feels like a true continuation and satisfying send-off for the Kingsman saga. When it comes to what the actual story might look like, Vaughn has teased that The Blue Blood is intended to be the last linear Kingsman film, meaning it's likely to bring this particular arc to a big, satisfying close. After digging into the organization's roots in The Kingsman, this next movie is set to jump back to the modern day and pick up right where the Golden Circle left off. The heart of it will apparently zero in on Harry and Eggsy's evolving bond, which has gotten pretty father-son by this point. Beyond that, Vaughn's kept things pretty close to the vest. We just know he wants it to be a proper send-off for the characters. That said, getting this movie actually rolling has proven to be way harder than expected, mostly because Taron Egerton's calendar is absolutely packed. Vaughn recently told Collider that production probably wouldn't kick off until the following year, explaining, "That'll be the next year, because Taron's bloody busy. He's doing another movie. The guy that did Blackbird, they're doing another big TV show, so I have to wait for his availability as well." Turns out the show Vaughn's talking about is called Firebug, which Egerton is starring in alongside Journey Smollett. It's an 8-episode series about a detective and an arson investigator chasing a pair of serial arsonists. That's just one of many projects Egerton's piled on since the original plan for Kingsman 4 back in 2019. It got pushed to 2022, then delayed again to now, hopefully, 2025. In that time, Egerton's been plenty busy, taking on roles in Blackbird, the Elton John biopic Rocketman, and voice work in Sing 2 and the Sandman podcast, plus starring in Apple TV's Tetris. So, even though the delays have been frustrating, he's clearly not just sitting around. Meanwhile, Vaughn hasn't exactly been twiddling his thumbs either. He's kept busy working on other Kingsman scripts, got the prequel made, and even produced Rocketman and Tetris. He also directed Argylle, which, fun twist, ended up being connected to the Kingsman universe. And although it's still unclear who all might return for this last Kingsman outing, you can bet schedules have been part of the headache. Colin Firth, who's expected to reprise Harry, has had quite the run since the Golden Circle. He's popped up in Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, Mary Poppins Returns, 1917, and the miniseries The Staircase. Plus, he's attached to a new project called Young Sherlock, so he's staying booked and busy too. So in the end, even though there's no solid release date yet, and plenty of hurdles still to clear, it doesn't feel like Kingsman the Blue Blood is completely dead. With Vaughn and Egerton both eager to do it, there's still hope we'll see Harry and Eggsy suit up one more time for a big, stylish, over-the-top farewell. And for fans who've loved watching their sharp suits, outrageous stunts, and surprisingly heartfelt moments over the years, that's definitely something to keep rooting for. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.